afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Dr. David Glasner. I'm the superintendent of Shaker Heights City School District. It is great to be here with you this afternoon and to share some reflections on the year that we've just experienced together, as well as to provide some updates to looking ahead to what is coming with the Shaker City School District. Our structure for this afternoon, I will provide some information, some updates, run through some of the slides that you should see on your screen, after which we will have an opportunity for questions and answers. There is a chat function that you should have access to now. So if there are questions or comments that come up as I'm presenting, you are welcome to put those in the chat. After my presentation, we will have an opportunity for those questions and comments to be shared through our moderator, Kristen Cash from our communications department. So our objectives for this afternoon. First, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to highlight progress towards our strategic plan, goals, and objectives. We will also be talking about the work that we've been doing towards advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in our school district and for our students. And also, this presentation this afternoon is an opportunity to acknowledge areas of strength as well as opportunities for improvement and challenges that we have faced and may continue to face. The way the presentation this afternoon is structured, I'll talk a little bit about where we've been, how we got to where we are today. Provide some information about things that are happening in our school district and some of the outcomes that we are experiencing and seeing, and where we are going. I do want to acknowledge I've spent quite a bit of time in visiting our school district, visiting our schools, visiting classrooms, getting to see students and learning and teaching in action, which has been fantastic. I'll share some of those experiences and stories over the course of my presentation this afternoon. I also want to acknowledge that the purpose of this evening's presentation is a district-wide perspective on the work that is happening and the learning that is happening and the outcomes we're seeing and supports that we're providing. And so it may not be as focused on one specific classroom or on one specific set of students. So in terms of where we've been, I wanted to start by laying the foundation for how we got to where we are today. And really the idea that we have spent the past few years really establishing priorities that continue to be the focus of our work in our school district today. So first, a few years ago, in February of 2019, our Board of Education adopted the first ever educational equity policy. This equity policy really helped lay the groundwork for our strategic plan and the decisions that we continue to make today. About 3 years ago, I identified Black student excellence and school climate as priority areas of focus. And those priority areas of focus were really meant to help bridge the gap or the time between the adoption of an educational equity policy and our new strategic plan, which we adopted in March of 2020. That strategic plan is built on two pillars, educational equity and our International Baccalaureate Program and International Baccalaureate Program framework. So those two pillars really serve as the foundation for our strategic plan. That strategic plan helped to lay the groundwork for our move 2 years ago, where we moved towards inclusive, heterogeneous, rigorous, and supportive learning spaces. And just a couple of notes about that move to those inclusive, heterogeneous learning spaces. First of all, we made that move. It is part of our strategic plan and embedded in our goals and objectives. We also had to make certain decisions because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And there were decisions that we had to make that probably would look different if the COVID pandemic did not exist or did not exist in that way. And obviously that pandemic has continued to have an impact on how we're able to implement inclusive, heterogeneous, rigorous, and supportive learning spaces. I also know sometimes people refer to that move as it's sometimes shorthanded as move towards detracking or de-leveling. Intentionally this evening and moving forward, really want to focus on the purpose of those structural changes, which is to make sure that all of our students are learning in spaces that are inclusive of people who are similar to them and people who are different from them, that students are supported, and also challenged in those learning spaces. So you'll see me refer to that language a little more some other times over the course of this evening, and that's wanted to make sure we're on the same page about what that means. I wanted to highlight two of our strategic plan goals this evening because I think they really help to emphasize how significant the work that we're doing is, how exciting the work that we're doing is, and also how difficult and challenging the work that we're doing is. Strategic plan goal, our first goal, is focused on students' academic experience, on their learning experience. And the goal focuses on making sure that each student is provided with a rigorous and enriching educational experience that aligns with the IB philosophy and framework, and that prepares all graduates for post-secondary education and careers. The second goal in our strategic plan focuses on making sure that we are advancing educational equity by disrupting and removing institutional structures and practices which have historically been associated with racism, oppression, and other forms of marginalization. Taken together, these two goals really lay a strong foundation and a focus for our work. Number one, we want to make sure that each student has access to a rigorous, challenging, and supportive learning experience. And number two, we need to address institutional and historical structures that marginalize students, that oppress students, and that are associated with historical forms of discrimination and oppression. There are other goals within the strategic plan. I want to acknowledge those. They are also important and work that we are doing, but I wanted to emphasize these two goals this evening because they really do help lay the groundwork for the work that I'll be talking about during this presentation. So before I move into this next session, I believe we've had some more people join us over the course of the past few minutes. Just again, a note about logistics this evening. I will be talking through a presentation for the beginning of this webinar. There is a chat function. You are welcome to put questions and comments in the chat function as I speak. Our moderator, Kristen Cash from the Communications Department, will be able to see those questions and comments. And when I'm done with the presentation part of this evening, we will have an opportunity to go through some of those questions and comments and for me to respond to them. So where we are today, first of all, I want to acknowledge that there has been many challenges over the past couple of years, and yet our students are doing excellent work. Our teachers are doing excellent work. All of our staff around our school buildings are helping to provide positive and supportive learning environments. These bullets just highlight a couple of really I think, amazing accomplishments that our students and teachers and others have been able to do over the past year. For example, the class of 2022 has 55 full International Baccalaureate Program diploma candidates. This is the largest and most diverse cohort of IB diploma candidates. We also have 6 IB medallion students. This is really amazing for our school district, and I know is representative of a great deal of work and support and effort on behalf of the students, as well as many faculty members and other staff members and families. We also this year had 17 National Merit semifinalists, second highest number among public schools in Northeast Ohio and fourth highest in the state. Another amazing accomplishment and reflective of Shaker's tradition of academic excellence. Beyond those two very specific accomplishments, we also know that our students continue to excel in the arts, in music, in writing, and drama. Student athletes excel in local, state, and national competitions. Really, just over the past couple of weeks, I know I've had the opportunity, last week I had the opportunity to go visit a number of schools, see fourth grade students present their exhibition action research projects, which were fantastic. Really an excellent example of how our students are learning about their community and helping to make a difference in their community. We've had many different arts and music presentations, concerts, art exhibits. Our student athletes are really going above and beyond. I know we've had a number of different accolades and accomplishments on and off the field and on and off the court very recently. And it's great to see our students doing such great work. This year, as many of you know, we have also focused on expanding opportunities for students to engage in career and technical education experiences, as well as to have opportunities to explore career and different course pathways. And I'd like to give a special shout out to the Shaker Schools Foundation for all of their work. You'll see me reference the Shaker Schools Foundation a number of times over the course of this evening. They really have played a leading role in helping make sure that our students have access to the kinds of experiences that you see on the slide in front of you. Just a couple of quick highlights. This year, for the first year, we offered a robotics and manufacturing classes at our high school. We know we've spoken to industry leaders and experts in this region and beyond who have shared with us how necessary it is for our students to graduate with skills that allow them to solve real world problems, to use technology to help solve problems, to work in teams, to solve problems. The robotics and manufacturing courses are an example where students are really putting all of those skills into hands-on experience. We also have a woodworking program at the middle school now, which is fantastic. Our students really getting to design and build their own designs through that woodworking class. This year, we also provided students with opportunity to learn how to repair and build motorcycles through the MotoGo program. We've had a mentoring program with architects and construction leaders and engineers. And our Innovative Center, our IC, has really focused on ensuring that students have an opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship, to engage in their own entrepreneurial activities and ideas. We also are excited to announce that we are applying to be able to incorporate a dental assistant course pathway for our school district. We're part of a consortium that offers career and technical education courses, and we know that there is a real need in our region and beyond for dental assistants. And so we're excited to be able to offer that pathway, hopefully in the not too distant future. I want to spend the next few minutes talking about some of the learning outcomes that we have experienced, that we've seen over the past year. I'm going to focus on mathematics outcomes, on reading outcomes, and also talk about school culture and climate and some of the data that we have. In addition to talking about the outcomes, I'm going to be talking about some of the ongoing steps that we are taking to continue to strengthen the work that we're doing in each of those areas. Some of this information, I imagine, may not be too much of a surprise to folks, given what we know about both our own district and also the different dynamics and challenges that have existed over the past couple of years. So first of all, we know that in our school district, there were significant disparities between subgroups in terms of learning outcomes, and those disparities existed before the pandemic. We also know that students entered this school year with significant learning loss, largely, but not exclusively, as a result of the pandemic and the different kind of learning models that existed as a result of COVID-19. Disparities in math outcomes have persisted. And average MAP scores, MAP scores are the assessments that we use to measure math progress across grade levels. Average MAP scores have decreased slightly across subgroups as compared to 2019. So again, disparities existed prior to the pandemic. We know that students entered this year with significant learning loss, and we've seen average MAP scores decrease slightly across subgroups as compared to 2019. We do have a number of steps that we are already in process, that we already have, that we're already implementing to ensure that we are providing supportive, challenging, and inclusive learning environments, specifically in mathematics. So this year was the first year that we implemented the Bridges math curriculum in grades K through 5. The Bridges math curriculum is a conceptual-based math curriculum. It helps to prepare our students for Algebra 1 in 8th grade. It is very much an alignment with the International Baccalaureate Framework and philosophy. And it is part of supporting all 8th grade students in Algebra 1. We know that we have students currently in Algebra 1 who did not take the Bridges math curriculum. And so we have also put in place additional supports for students, our current 8th grade students and future 8th grade students, so that they can be successful in Algebra 1. We also know that the way we teach math now is different than the way we used to teach math. And so we have provided targeted professional learning and curriculum development opportunities for our teachers. Those efforts really began in earnest about 1.5 years ago, and they have continued more intensively. We know it's critical to continue to provide support specifically around ensuring that teachers are prepared to provide support and challenging and rigorous classroom curriculum in mathematics in inclusive and heterogeneous settings. And that will be a continued focus moving forward. We are also in the process of reviewing our math curriculum and resources for grades 5 through Algebra 1. Just like we implemented the Bridges curriculum this year for grades K through 5, we know that that is something, math resources and curriculum is something we need to continue to explore to ensure that it aligns with the kind of course learning opportunities we want students to have moving forward. There are some similarities in terms of the data we're seeing related to reading and language arts. Again, probably not too surprisingly for many folks who are familiar with both our school district as well as regional and national trends data, significant disparities in learning outcomes existed between demographic subgroups before the pandemic. We know that students entered this year with significant learning loss in the area of reading. We have seen disparities in reading outcomes persist, with average MAP scores decreasing slightly across subgroups as compared to 2019. We also have implemented a new literacy intervention program this year in grades K through 4 with the help of K4 literacy specialists. We have seen some pretty phenomenal outcomes related to the K4 literacy intervention program. 51% of students in the K4 literacy program met or exceeded their MAP growth goals. That means They made more growth than expected in reading over the course of the year. Also, out of 384 students who participated in the program this year, 76 of them have quote unquote graduated from the program. That means they met the criteria to exit the literacy intervention program. Now we will continue to provide support and to continue to monitor those students, their growth and achievement. But again, that's pretty phenomenal. We are talking about students who entered this year significantly below grade level, and to see them make this kind of growth and progress over the course of the year with the support of their teachers and literacy intervention specialists, literacy specialists, is fantastic. There are some ongoing steps and structures that we have put in place to make sure that we will continue to be able to provide support for students in reading and to provide challenging and rigorous learning environments around reading and language arts for all students. Number one, we will continue to focus on the science of reading. Our literacy specialists have all been trained in a literacy program that is very specific to the science of reading. They've been able to help share and model that kind of instruction and teaching with other classroom teachers. We will continue to implement literacy and reading interventions at all grade levels. And with the help of our literacy specialists, we're really working on making sure we're modeling those literacy supports and interventions with the science of reading in mind. We have provided opportunities for targeted professional learning and curriculum development. As I mentioned with math, the way we teach reading now is different than the way we used to teach reading, and the way classrooms function is different than the way classrooms used to function. So we have made sure to provide opportunities for professional learning and curriculum development, specifically around reading and language arts. We are also ensuring that there are opportunities for rigorous reading curriculum at the secondary level. I know one of the things that we heard over the pandemic was that students weren't being challenged in reading and language arts at the secondary level for a variety of factors, and we want to make sure as we move forward that the curriculum really provides a rigorous, robust, and challenging learning environment for all students. Last but certainly not least, we have implemented a Windows and Mirrors reading program for all students, which has been supported by the Shaker Schools Foundation, as well as by our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The Windows and Mirrors reading program really makes sure that there are resources available to students at all grade levels that helps give them both a reflection of themselves, their own culture, their own identity, other demographic characteristics, as well as windows into other cultures, other people's experiences, perspectives, and identities. And so that Windows and Mirrors program has provided additional resources for students at all grade levels. I want to focus next on school culture, talk a little bit about some of the data that we're seeing related to school culture, and again, talk about some of the ongoing steps that we're taking to help address some of the things that we're seeing. So, similar to the academic learning outcomes, school culture, we have also experienced some challenges as a result of the pandemic. We know that student attendance has decreased across subgroups as compared to 2018, 2019. That was the last pre-pandemic year. We know that there are lots of different challenges that our community is experiencing, that communities across the country are experiencing related to student attendance. This is not unique to Shaker. We have also seen generally an increase in discipline incidents across schools as compared to 2018, 2019. Again, this is not unique to Shaker. We know that our students and families and teachers and other staff are experiencing a wide range of challenges as a result of the pandemic and because of other factors. That has led to an increase in disciplinary incidents across our schools. Just like we have disparities in outcomes in math and reading, there is disproportionality between Black and white students in terms of both infractions and disciplinary consequences. That is something that disproportionality existed before the pandemic, and it is something that we very much continue to work on addressing. This year, for the first year, at least for the first time in a while, we did administer a survey that was specifically focused on school culture and climate, on student, staff, and faculty's sense of belonging, on how they experience the learning environments in our schools. We're in the process still of administering that survey and collecting the data, so we do not have that yet, but we expect to use the Panorama survey data as an additional tool for us to have an understanding of our school culture and climate. And we do expect to continue administering the Panorama survey over the next oncoming years. There are steps that we are taking to continue to ensure that our students and teachers and staff have a positive learning and teaching environment. First, and maybe most importantly, we are working on implementing positive behavior interventions and supports. That's known by its acronym PBIS, structures in every school building. Supported by, this is another effort that is supported by the Shaker Schools Foundation. Some of you may be familiar with PBIS structures. You may see your students coming home with tickets for different kinds of incentives and other structures that help support the creation of a positive learning environment for our students. We're also focusing and kind of targeting our students in grades 5 through 8. We know that our students in grades 5 through 8 experienced unique challenges. Those are often transition years where students are experiencing a wide range of different kinds of emotions. Learning environments and learning structures change during those grades. And students move from an elementary model to a secondary model. So it is not uncommon to experience different kinds of needs in grades 5 through 8. As we move towards next year, we are working on implementing more cohesive structures in those grade levels, structures that focus on students being oriented to those grade levels, on providing consistent social and emotional supports for students across those grade levels, on ensuring that there is kind of a cohesive and comprehensive approach to how our student support professionals work with students in those grade levels. So those grade levels are really a focus area as we move forward with our work for next year. Similarly, we have and are working on implementing social emotional learning curriculum for students in grades 5 through 8. We do have social and emotional learning structures beyond grades 8. For example, our high school crew program is an example of a social emotional support that students have at the high school level. We also know that it's important for students in the younger grade levels to have an intentional and strategic and deliberate curriculum around social and emotional learning. We have been using the Caring Schools community curriculum at our elementary grade levels. We will continue to do so moving forward. We are also exploring different kinds of curriculum for students at the middle years level. We want to make sure that we have a social emotional curriculum for those students that is really age and developmentally appropriate. As with our academic programming, we are also providing targeted professional learning to address issues related to implicit bias and to ensure that we have professional learning specifically around creating a sense of belonging for all students and staff. One of the other parts of our strategic plan, and I know something that has been discussed in our community, relates to our staff and the importance of ensuring that our staff is diverse and representative of our overall community. We know that it's important for students, for all students, to see people who are similar to them as teachers, and also to see people who are different than them as teachers and administrators. And of course, we want to make sure that across all of our staffing, so across all of our staffing groups, that our staff is representative of our entire community. But I want to focus specifically on our teachers and administrators, since I know those are the groups that our students and families typically interact with the most. So the number and percentage of our Black teachers has increased slightly since 2019. Also, the number of Black certified administrators in our district has doubled since 2019, and the overall percentage of certified Black administrators in our district has also increased significantly since 2019. Now, these numbers are positive and certainly promising. We also know that as a district, and again, this is not unique to Shaker, we have a long way to go in terms of making sure that our overall composition of our faculty and administration staff is representative of our student body and of our community at large. This year, we experienced staffing challenges and shortages across employee groups. And I know, again, this is not unique to Shaker, but some specific challenges and shortages that we've experienced include challenges related to bus drivers, substitute teachers, finding employees across across all employee groups, including security monitors, paraprofessionals, and other employee groups. We also know that because of the pandemic, many of our employees were navigating different challenges, both at the workplace, but also outside of the workplace. And so that is something that has certainly had an impact on our school district this school year. I am excited to announce that we will be moving forward with developing an intentional plan around the hiring and retention of diverse faculty and staff. That is part of our strategic plan. We are putting in place structures to ensure that that will be a priority of ours moving forward. And like with everything, these are challenges and issues and priorities that we have that have taken decades, if not generations, to the dynamics have been created over a long period of time. And we know that we're not going to be able to resolve or solve these challenges overnight, but we do know that it's important to build intentional plans and structures to ensure that we're addressing these issues moving forward, and to continue to see improvements in the representation of our staff and faculty moving forward. I want to focus now on some of the structures that we have put in place in our school district to address some of the things that I was just talking about. And I believe we have put in place a number of different structures to ensure success in these areas. I know, as many of you are aware, we created a new Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We now have a Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Dr. Larry Burnley, as well as a DEI learning specialist who really helps provide professional learning supports to faculty and staff and school building leadership across all of our school buildings. We also have a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator who works with some of our student groups and also helps to ensure that we are putting in place measures to ensure the implementation of our strategic plan goals and that we're advancing towards strategic plan goals and objectives. We have expanded our family and community engagement department to include liaisons at our school buildings and to ensure that families have connections with our school building staff and that they have specific points of contact, and that we have staff who are helping provide support to engage families and to provide support for families at home. As I mentioned before, we have literacy intervention specialists in all of our elementary buildings. And we also have a new supervisor of student wellness and success, Liz Massey, who has helped to make sure that we are coordinating student support professionals and student supports across all of our school buildings. We have also added student support professionals in every one of our school buildings this year. Social workers, behavior specialists, and other student support professionals who are helping provide direct supports for our students and their families. And of course, as I mentioned, our Shaker Schools Foundation has been an integral part in helping to support these efforts. I know the Night for the Red and White this year focused specifically on student wellness and success, and we really appreciate the leadership and support of the Shaker Schools Foundation in these areas. I know I've talked a little bit about social and emotional learning and student wellness already. I just want to add to that. We have created a social and emotional learning staff schedule by building so that families and students know when and how they can access supports. We do have a formalized referral process that anyone can access for students in need of additional support. We also have put in place crisis intervention and threat assessment protocols across our district. That is something that we have put in place and also something that we're continuing to train ourselves on, ensure that we are implementing in case of any emergencies. We also implemented a new universal screening assessment this year called BIMAS, which is really just like students take a math assessment or reading assessment. The BIMAS assessment is an assessment that focuses specifically on students' social and emotional learning skills and readiness. We've implemented mentoring programs, which have been supported by the Shaker Schools Foundation. We have positive behavior coordinators in each of our school buildings providing additional support. They work with staff and faculty specifically around implementation of social emotional learning supports and curriculum. And we have other social and emotional learning programming that is taking place across all of our school buildings. I know I've talked about professional learning a bit up until now, but I want to emphasize that without professional learning, none of these efforts could be successful. We know that it's critical to provide support to our faculty and to our staff to implement all of the different things that I've shared. We've focused professional learning on strengthening and providing support for teachers, specifically in heterogeneous environments that are inclusive and rigorous. We've conducted, in each of our school buildings, we've conducted instructional rounds, which are opportunities for staff and students to visit classrooms, to look at classrooms and identify themes and trends specifically around equity and instructional practices. We've provided professional learning around universal design for learning. Universal design for learning is a framework that is really meant to be implemented in heterogeneous learning environments that are inclusive, that are rigorous, that are challenging and supportive. We've conducted quite a bit of professional learning around inclusivity, around belonging, around cultural competencies, skills, and structures. That is work that has already taken place and will be ongoing. And we have made sure that we're building additional professional learning time into our school schedule. Some of that is professional learning time that teachers are able to take advantage of before or after students are in the school or during the school day when there are opportunities for common planning time. We've also built in additional professional learning days so that teachers and other faculty and staff will have the opportunity to engage in the kind of work that's described here when students are not in the building. So I want to talk a little bit about where we're going and just from a big picture, some important priorities and focus areas moving forward. First, and maybe most importantly, we are moving towards a place and a space of inclusive excellence. I know many of you may have heard this term before. Inclusive excellence is a framework that emphasizes the importance of diverse learning environments in which students of all backgrounds can thrive. You've heard me talk already today about inclusive learning environments where students are supported and challenged and that are rigorous. And the Inclusive Excellence Framework recognizes how critical this is and how beneficial diverse, supportive, and challenging learning environments are for all students. And so we are moving towards this framework because we recognize how important it is for all of our students, faculty, staff, and families. We also know that inclusive excellence creates a sense of belonging for all students, for all staff, for all families, and really make sure that we are teaching students to learn and engage with people who are different from them to address real world problems. I want to emphasize that the skills and other learnings that students experience in a framework of inclusive excellence, these skills and values will help students succeed when they're here in Shaker Heights City School District and also beyond once they've graduated from our schools and throughout their lives. So you will hear us talking about inclusive excellence quite a bit moving forward. And I wanted to make sure we had the same understanding of what that means and why it's so important. Looking ahead, I want to highlight some additional exciting opportunities for our school district. We are in the process of expanding our pre-K program. We're in the process of hiring an early childhood coordinator to help coordinate and facilitate and support that expansion. We know how important it is for our students to be a part of the Shaker Heights Schools community as early as possible, and it's exciting to continue to expand our pre-K program. We will also be implementing services for gifted students. As many of you are aware, we started about a year ago a more formal gifted student identification process. This next phase is to make sure that we're providing services for students identified as gifted. As part of that process, we will be hiring a gifted services coordinator as well as gifted intervention specialists, people who bring a skill set specifically related to gifted students. We also will be planning for possible expansion of our Innovative Center. I know our Innovative Center, the students there are doing amazing work. They just had an exhibition or an opportunity to share their learning at the IC about a week ago. It is fantastic to see how our students and teachers at the IC are being innovative, having opportunities for hands-on learning, both in the academic realm as well as in social and emotional learning. We have gotten questions and requests to expand the IC to grade levels below high school, below 9 through 12. We will be spending next year working on planning for a possible expansion. It's great to see so many students and families excited by the work that's happening at the IC. We will also be focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion in athletics. This is a topic that I know you've probably been reading about outside of our school district. We know that it's important for all of our students to feel welcome and to feel a sense of belonging in athletics, and for us to be able to address on and off the athletic field and the athletic court the dynamics, tensions, challenges, relationships that exist in our community and beyond. Lastly, we will be providing intentional orientation and transition opportunities as we move into the next school year. We know that the past couple of years, there have been lots of disruptions, lots of different kinds of challenges that our students have faced in school and outside of school. And as we start and welcome students back into our next school year, we know it's going to be critical to make sure that students and staff and faculty have opportunities to very intentionally start the school year to create positive, welcoming, and productive learning environments. And so we will be planning for intentional orientation and transition opportunities for our students. outside of kind of specific to learning environments, but equally importantly, there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. I know I haven't spent as much time focusing on that this evening. As I think you're all aware, we're in the process of a long-term facilities planning process. One of the things I've heard over the past couple of weeks is that it's important that we also make sure, in addition to the facilities planning process, that we're also focusing on our programming and on what's happening inside of our schools. You'll see this evening that that work is continuing. What's happening inside of our schools, the learning experiences, the teaching that's happening is a real focus. And it's also important that we work on planning for our facilities for generations to come. And so that is work that is continuing. We're also in the process of implementing a new student information system. And we're also putting in place new software platforms and other systems in human resources and in finance and in other areas, really kind of the work that happens behind the scenes so that we can really focus on student learning on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of exciting work happening across the district. Just to conclude, you have probably gathered from my presentation this evening, we do have challenges, and I want to be upfront about that. We also have lots of opportunities, exciting opportunities. We are and have put in place specific steps and actions to address the challenges that we face, and our strategic plan and the goals within our strategic plan remains the guiding force for our district, and I believe really provide a lot of excitement around where we are and where we're headed. And lastly, we are moving towards a model of inclusive excellence, inclusive learning environments where students are supported, where they're challenged, where they have access to rigorous and robust curriculum. That is where we are headed, and I'm excited for where we are and also for what lies ahead. With that, we are going to move into questions, answers, and comments. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. While we move into that, I will say that this presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing it with our community at large once we conclude this evening. I'd like to invite Kristen Cash, a member of our communications department, to join me now. And she will help to moderate the questions and comments that we've received so far, and people are still welcome to put questions and comments in the chat feature as we speak.
Great, thank you. Dr. Glasner, our first question that I will pose to you is, can you provide specific examples of institutional structures and practices that are associated with racism and oppression?
Did you say to provide some specific examples, or did you give a number to that?
Yeah, it was just asking for some examples. This question came in earlier in your presentation when you were discussing this.
Sure. One of those, we talk a lot about tracking. That's maybe one of the more kind of visible structures that is associated with institutional or structural racism. For example, actually, there's been quite a bit of research that talks about why tracking exists in Shaker Heights schools. A current professor at Cleveland State University, Ann Galetta, who has been a part of our Shaker Heights schools community, talks about sites of educational privilege. These are courses or tracks or pathways that were designed really to ensure that segregation continues to be perpetuated in our school district or in other school districts. It's no coincidence that you often see a rise in those kinds of tracking structures take place when a school district is going through integration. After Brown versus Board of Education, and here in Shaker Heights in the 1980s, when we started moving towards integration, we saw an increase in tracking structures take place, not just in math and reading, but across many different subject areas. So that's one example of, where we have structures that continue to perpetuate segregation or other forms of racism. Another example really is related to hiring practices. And I think it's why the focus on staff diversity and representation is so important. We know, and this is not typical, this is not unusual, or this is not unique to Shaker Heights. Often people find out about jobs or get jobs through networks, who they know, how they know people, how they hear about jobs. We also know that that perpetuates a very similar kind of workforce. We know that we need to be very intentional about ensuring diversity within our workforce so that we can give a diverse group of people experiences to continue to build a diverse and representative workforce. It's why our Black Teacher Task Force is now a critical part of our hiring process, so that we have a representative group of staff and faculty members who have traditionally been marginalized or underrepresented in the hiring process, to ensure that we are attracting and retaining a diverse and representative group of staff. I'm happy to come up with to talk about other examples while we get to other questions over time. I'm always happy to come up with or talk about more.
We have more questions, so we will take the next one. There's a parent who expressed concern with the level of homework and rigor of schoolwork that was assigned at the middle school, that perhaps it maybe wasn't challenging enough. So she'd like to know how the district will assure that our students will be prepared for the rigors of the high school IB curriculum and the AP coursework.
Thank you for that question. So when I talked about making sure that we have a challenging curriculum around reading and language arts at our secondary level, that's specifically what I was talking about. We both have heard some concerns from students and community members that particularly over the last 2 years, that there have been concerns around our curriculum not being challenging or rigorous enough. Some of that is related to the pandemic, as well as other factors. Our learning and teaching department, and specifically our curriculum and instructional leaders, are taking a deep dive into that, looking both at the data as well as the curriculum resources and the curriculum planning that is underway, to ensure that moving forward, students are accessing challenging, rigorous, robust, and supportive learning environments and experiences, particularly at the middle years level and moving into high school. Our high school teachers and administrators are aware that students coming into the high school, the students who came into high school this year, as well as students who may be coming into high school next year, may have experienced learning loss or have other gaps in their learning. And that is why we have ensured the kind of processes that I've talked about at the middle years level is also happening at the high school, where teachers, administrators, and other instructional leaders are working to review our curriculum, make sure that it is challenging, developmentally appropriate, and supportive, and that if there is a need to fill in some of the gaps that students may be coming with, that is a part of the curriculum. So that is something that we are prepared for. I know the question asked specifically about the International Baccalaureate program, the diploma program, as well as AP courses. We are putting in place a high school schedule that will provide additional opportunities for intervention and enrichment next year, as well as professional learning, so that teachers, students, and staff have the opportunity to be supported, to be challenged, and also develop the curriculum and instructional strategies that will assist in all of those efforts.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, there were a couple that kind of spoke to this. So can you share what you have learned from the data you've gathered about the increase in disciplinary incidents, and what action steps the district is taking to ensure a safe environment for students, teachers, and staff?
Sure. So, in terms of what the data shows, that really the kind of trend data that I shared earlier is really what the data shows. We've seen an increase in disciplinary incidents. We know that that is a reflection of many different factors, including challenges that students may be facing outside of school, as well as challenges that students may be facing in school. We've seen, one of the things that I found interesting is that we've seen, I guess I would say, some challenging behaviors really across all grade levels. And we know that part of that is because, for well over a year, students were experiencing very different learning environments than they had prior to the pandemic. So a lot of our students needed to learn school, learn how to do school, if not from scratch, then to relearn how to do it. For example, first graders really were coming into school this year having had very different learning experiences than previous years where they had kindergarten and maybe even pre-K before. That's true for our middle school students, for our students in 5th and 6th grade. So there were a unique set of challenges. We have put in place both a significant number of supports for our students and our staff, and as well as structures. And those are steps that are ongoing. So already for next year, we are looking to make sure that we will have structures in place to ensure that there's appropriate supervision of students, that there are support professionals that students can work with, that there are structures being put in place across all schools that help students navigate school and challenging social situations when they arise. And we're looking when needed. We know that it's important to have supports, and we know it's important for us to be clear about the rules that we face, the rules that students have, and what happens when behaviors do not meet our school rules. So we're looking at our discipline structures and how we can ensure that those are clear. It's why we're focusing so much on orientation and transition opportunities, because we know it's going to be important as students come into our buildings next school year, that we really have an opportunity to go over our norms for our community and make sure that everybody has a shared understanding of what those norms are and how we can create positive learning environments together. I want to be clear, this work is challenging, but I believe in Shaker we are very fortunate to have the kind of supports and resources that we do have. I also, and I alluded to this when I talked about the data, we do see disproportionality, both in terms of the incidents, discipline incidents, but also in terms of the results or the outcomes of those discipline incidents. And that's something that we're committed to addressing as we move forward. It's part of our work around creating inclusive and excellent learning environments. How do we make sure that students feel a sense of belonging, that they are welcomed, that they have positive relationships with students and with staff? So our crew program at the high school is an example. We're making that even more robust next year. We're building in homeroom structures, additional homeroom structures, the upper elementary level. We're building in social and emotional supports and curriculum at the middle school level, additional and more robust and rigorous social emotional curriculum. So those are just some examples. I know it was a short question with a long answer, but it really is an important issue as we move forward.
Thank you. The next question is dealing with staffing. Can you speak to how the district is addressing burnout and turnover among staff and teachers after 2 years of weathering the pandemic? And then a follow-up question, are there perhaps pay incentives that could help attract or retain staff?
So again, like many of the things I've talked about today, this is an issue that is not unique to Shaker. I do want to first acknowledge the incredible hard work that all of our staff has done over the past couple of years, of course, especially our teachers and administrators. We know that there have been a lot of challenges, and we've seen the kinds of challenges that we see related to staffing with our teachers and administrators. We see across subgroups. I know I alluded to that. So I guess just a couple of things. First of all, in terms of burnout, we know that we are experiencing I guess I would say higher than normal, either resignations or retirements or leaves of absences than we have experienced in the past, especially among our faculty. Again, this is not unique to Shaker. We're also seeing that pools of candidates coming into the education profession is typically smaller than it has been in the past. Again, this is not unique to Shaker. We have put in place some additional supports for all of our staff through our HR department to make sure that staff and faculty are getting the supports that they need. We are fortunate in Shaker. Our compensation typically is very competitive and continues to be. We just came to an agreement with our Shaker Heights Teachers Association for a new contract that provided a significant salary increase for our teachers. We know that is part of the answer to attracting and retaining staff and faculty, but it's certainly not the only answer. We also know that professional learning and supports is part of that, giving teachers the opportunity to work with each other and to learn from each other, to address issues together and figure out how to provide the best learning experiences for students. That is part of the work. We also know it's important to continue to build pipelines to build cohorts of teachers to come to work in Shaker Heights. It's why that intentional plan around recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce is so important. And that starts even before students leave Shaker Heights, really providing opportunities for students to learn about the education profession, to have positive experiences. It's why we've included students in our instructional rounds this year so that they really have a voice in the work that is happening in our district and see themselves as helping lead the district. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Again, I want to acknowledge the hard work that has taken place over the past couple of years. And I also believe that we're well positioned to continue to help provide support and to attract and retain staff and faculty moving forward.
Great. And out of respect for everyone's time, I have about 2 more questions, if you don't mind. So if the IB diploma program is growing, does that mean the district is going to consider getting rid of AP classes and are fewer kids taking them?
So, we are incredibly fortunate in Shaker that we are able to provide our students with such a wide range of learning experiences. And we've always been able to provide a wide range of course pathways for students. So the short answer to that question is we expect to continue to provide AP courses for students as well as IB diploma program courses for students. We also expect to provide other course pathways for students. We've continued to emphasize college credit plus courses, CCP courses, as well as you heard me talk earlier about CTE, career and technical education courses. So we're excited to continue to provide a wide range of course offerings for students. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we are preparing students so that they have the option to be successful in whatever course pathway or option they choose, whether that's AP courses or IB diploma program courses or CTE courses or college credit plus courses or anything in between. That's really our goal. Like I said, I think we're incredibly fortunate and lucky here in Shaker Heights to have such a wide range of excellent pathways for students, and exciting to continue to be able to provide that.
Thank you. And then for the final question, can you speak more to any plans to expand the pre-K program and how we may be able to make it affordable for more equitable early childhood education access?
Sure. So just a little bit of sense of the numbers around pre-K. Currently, we have about 80 students in our pre-K program. We are hoping to expand that number to 100 to 120. It is a program. We do get some, I would say, pretty minimal state or federal funding for that program. We do also have a tuition program as part of pre-K, and the district provides its own support and resources towards the pre-K program. Really, we would love to get to a place where either universal pre-K or something close to universal pre-K is the norm. For that to happen, we really will need additional federal or state support. So I encourage all of our community members to continue to advocate with our policymakers and legislators to move in that direction. While that is not yet an option, we are always exploring ways that we can continue to expand our pre-K program, even if it's only incrementally, because we know how critical it is and how important it is for us to be able to provide such a rigorous, robust, enriching, and supportive learning environment. And our pre-K program is all of those things. It really is an excellent program to as many students as possible, because we know that that really helps students be successful throughout their entire Shaker Heights educational career and well beyond. So it is definitely a priority. We're doing everything we can to expand it as much as we can, and also know that state and federal support is necessary to really expand it to a full either universal or close to universal pre-K model. So I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening. Thank you for your questions, for your comments, for listening. As Kristen Cash put in the chat, we are capturing all questions and comments. So while this webinar is still live, you're welcome to put any additional questions or comments that you have. And we will share this recording with our broader community once we're done this evening. Thank you again. I hope everybody has a great evening, and we look forward to celebrating the end of the year and our graduates next week. Have a great day.